I've worked in law, politics, investment banking, and ran my own businesses. And I've advised the US, South Korean, and Chinese governments. How does the world see China? How does China see the world? I'm Einar Tangen. Find out on Tangen on China, a special series during the 2 sessions. The stock stereotype of a bespectacled Asian doing the grunt work on a blueprint while the white person with ideas directs them is a persistent racial stereotype promulgated so often over the years that even many Asians believed it. For example, Xu Xiaoping, co-founder of New Oriental Group and one of China's most prominent angel investors, said in 2012 he didn't think China would be able to produce its own equivalent of Steve Jobs or Bill Gates in the next 10 years. Despite all that, China has achieved from gunpowder to paper and astronomy, and the fact that China developed the second largest number of unicorns, or startups, valued at more than $1 billion in less than 8 years since his statement. This is a testament to the self-doubts created during 150 years of Western dominance. In the US, there were laws not revoked until the 1950s, which said Asians, specifically Chinese, were not reliable witnesses in a court of law. Add to this the racist depiction of Asians as funny little fortune cookie spouting, pigtail wearing opium addicts from a country that was defeated by a handful of colonial powers who took land, concessions, and the right to sell opium, and you have the basis for today's modern beliefs that Asians may be hardworking and good at math, but incapable of doing the big creative things their colonial superiors could do. When China opened up 40 years ago, it lacked knowledge of the modern world. Living standards were so low and hardships were many. 40 years later, China has emerged as the second largest economy in the world. So times changed. Bruce Lee presented a different face of Asia, but most of the other racial stereotypes remained. Why is there a view Asians can't develop their own tech? As China emerged, the willingness to work hard, to learn, to plan was all they had. 40 years ago, there were no high-value exportable resources, no currency reserves, no modern banks, bourses, insurance companies, and no one who knew how to create these modern economic tools and platforms. In the city of Shenzhen, located across from Hong Kong, entrepreneurial Chinese bought and tried to copy watches, cell phones, fast-moving consumer goods at the start of the reform and opening up period. The fakes were called Shenzai, after the city that they worked in. Soon, China learned that it must develop its own technologies and began to crack down on these, quote, Shenzai, unquote, products. Over time, these Shenzai companies have evolved from copying to innovating. Today, these firms are the backbone of China's fast-moving consumer markets in everything from pet grooming to tech. Quote, made in China, unquote, has become, quote, created in China, unquote. The bad part is that the legacy of Shanzai lives on in the folklore of what defines China in the minds of those outside China. Interestingly, if you go back to the 1800s, the same things were said by Great Britain about Americans, who stole IP so they could break the cloth monopolies held by Great Britain. Japan followed the same path from copying to innovation and became a tech giant. Today, China's strategy is to seek development driven by innovation. Innovation is the buzzword, and the benefits of China's technology and innovation are shared by not only the 1.4 billion Chinese people, but the whole world as well. What does this mean for China? Ironically, the country stereotyped as having no innovation is being contained by Western powers in technology and innovation. In more concrete terms, like the US computer chip embargo and attacks on Chinese 5G providers. China is at a fork in the road, either self-reliance or a reset with the US. If China is forced to rely on itself, it will most likely concentrate on the next level of chip and communication designs and standards. The reason is, at the moment, the US owns many of the essential patents needed to construct silicone-based fabrication facilities. With the largest and still growing middle income and above markets and less expensive production capabilities, China could easily become the dominant tech player. This flies in the face of claims Asians, in particular Chinese people, aren't creative. If there is a reset and China and the US can work as global partners, then the tech could be shared, creating more efficiency with less cost. Racial stereotypes are difficult to stamp out, but as China continues to succeed, the rhetoric will not match the reality. What does this mean for the world? You underestimate China at your own peril.